All right, we are back with the 1971 Honda Trail 90. This video, I want to go through the front forks and we'll just take them apart, go through them and put them back together. As you can see, I am getting a little bit of leakage, and you'll see that the tubes on these inside here were really rusty, so I'm going to replace those. But this is the bike. That's the motor that we built in the last video, and we'll get to it. If you have your bike on a stand like I do, you may want to prop up the back wheel like that, because as soon as you pull the axle nut or pull the axle out and drop your front wheel, your bike's going to want to tip backwards. Also, in this scenario, the wheel is still connected to the brake and the speedometer cable, so you will want to have something to set that wheel onto as well. All right, to start off, these forks are held on by three nuts or three bolts. You got right here a 19 millimeter. That's also where we're going to fill the shock once it's serviced. You got a 14 millimeter, at least I have 14 millimeter right here. And then you've got 17 millimeter here at your axle bolt. And we'll drain the fluid out of this little bolt here, and that's a 10 millimeter. So first thing, you want to crack open this drain nut, pull it out. Then you want to pull this off because it has a seal and is holding all that fluid in. As soon as that's loosened, there you go. Just let that drain. Then we can just pull these two fill plugs out. Loosen our 14 millimeter clamps, both sides. Let's take off the axle nut. Should have a cotter pin. Next is loosen the axle nut. To do that, you'll want your 17 millimeter socket, but you'll also need to stop this side from spinning. You can use just a screwdriver to run through that hole. Next, we want to remove the fender with the 4 10 millimeter bolts inside. That should slide right out. From there, we should be able to drop each of these forks Let's see. There we go. Jeez. All right, we're back at the bench. Got one of these pulled apart so you can see everything that goes inside. At the top, you're gonna have this little rubber ring, this collar here. Inside the boot goes your spring, this plastic guy, this piece of plastic, and then this seat. Then all this slides over the shaft. In the shaft, you have a circlip here that sits down inside of this. I've removed this one. And then you have a seal here, which we should be able to pull out. All right. You can see what my problem was with these forks is that this is all corroded. So every time this seal would get pushed up over any of these bumps, it would allow the fluid to come out the top. But then we've got basically these couple of collars here. You've got a ring here that'll hold this one up. You've got a ring here that'll hold this one in place with a circlip right here as well. So if you wanted to, clean this up, you could take off this circlip, slide this off. You could take off this ring, you could slide it off, clean all this up, put it all back together. So once you get it all cleaned back up, it goes back together the opposite way. Just slide that in here, slide that down there, put on your new seal, press it down. And to press your seal down, you're going to just want something round that will slide over that piece of PVC pipe. You can wrap electrical tape, bring up this here, wrap electrical tape around here, and then use this shaft to push your seal in. Or you can buy a tool that will seal that. Then once your seal's on, put your circlip in. That'll snap itself inside of there. Then this whole assembly goes on your boot. Go down all over all this so it matches up like that. This will go on the top, this will go on here, and you're ready to go back on the bike. So here's a quick tip on reassembling the shock from here. Once you've got your new seal set and your circlip on, rather than putting all of these items together, having them on the shaft, all that's going to do is bind up this boot when you're trying to slide it over top of everything. So rather what you can do is just slide your boot on first. Let that set right in there. Then it's a little bit easier to kind of mash this stuff through the top rather than trying to get the boot over everything. And it takes a little bit of finagling, but don't go too crazy on it, but you can work this stuff up past all of these way easier than you can work that boot past down from the top. Almost there. There we go. Perfect. Then you can just slip the boot on over this collar, and you're good to go. Okay, so now back to the bike. We can put these on, and take note that you do have one of these will have a notch that will slide into your hub right there. That will be on your left hand side of the bike. And to get these on, we'll just make sure our fill cap is off. And as long as this is all set up, we can just slide it right back up. Just like that. Adjust this so that this little cutout will go around the clamp on the back side. And then once you get to the top, you can temporarily just thread in this that'll hold it up, keep it in place for right now. So we'll just do that to both sides. All right, so once we get the forks set into place, what you want to do is just give them a good push up and make sure that that bolt here at the top is tightened, and that fork is going to sit right where it needs to be on both sides. Don't worry about tightening these too much at this point. We're going to do these two side bolts next. So these side bolts torque down to 13 to 18 foot-pounds. So I'll just put them at 15. So the next thing you'll want to do is reinstall your fender. 10mm bolts. Then we can reinstall the wheel. Make sure you got your washer on your axle. That'll go through. Don't forget your spacer. That'll go in there on the one side of the hub. And of course this notch will slide itself up into position. Okay, let's back up. Once you have your forks back on the bike, I've got everything hand tight, got the wheel back on, axle nut hand tight, clamps hand tight, and your top bolts hand tight. You're gonna wanna get on the bike, just work the fork up and down a few times to make sure everything is set. And then just tighten those back up hand tight so that you know that your shock tube is all the way to the top. Then you want to torque your clamp bolts on the side to to 13 to 18 foot-pounds. That'll set your fork exactly where it needs to be. Then you want to unscrew this. I've already done it. I'm not going to undo it. You want to unscrew this on both sides. Fill up your forks. If you're going with the full rebuild, you're going to want to put in 4.4 to 4.7 ounces of fork oil. Or if you'd only drained the fork and we're just putting in new oil, you'd want to just go with 4.1 to 4.4 ounces. Then, once you've filled it, you want to tighten this up. This top fork bolt will be torqued to 25 to 33 foot-pounds. And then your front axle bolt will then be torqued to about 22 foot-pounds. If you need to go a little bit more so that the hole lines up and you can put the cotter pin through, that's all you need to do. Then at that point, you're done.